First things first, Marcus, thank you very much for joining me to talk about the album, about music, about life.
That's sick.
Where I want to start is you just mentioned kind of the tour that you were on, and
Yeah.
the European tour is over now. What are the feelings? Is it kind of a relief in a sense that you okay, finally some calm, or what are the feelings at the moment?
I usually feel like absolute dog shit going off a tour. It's usually none of us in the band drinks that much, and we just we like to just walk around and see shit whenever we're on tour, especially if we're touring Europe. But this time around, we actually partied once, and it was the second. I think it was in no, that was in Tilburg, I think. It was like a rave in the same fucking venue. We played, and everyone on the tour package was like, okay, this might be the last night we can like actually do some crazy shit. And all the bands on the tour knew each other before. We know each other like very well. We've toured with Era, we toured with a band called Sentinels, and we've toured with Silent Planet. It's just everyone is bros in the same bus. So that was the first night everyone just went absolute nuts, which was bad because I felt the hangover for almost a week. I feel good now, and then I came home last Monday, so I'm like, it's just not the hungover, but it's also like coming home from tour. You have to fly, even though my flight is only like 2 hours. I think we flew from Germany, and the boys flew back to America, and it just. I don't know. It always feels weird, but this time around, I feel okay. I usually feel like insanely bad after a tour. I usually get sick as soon as I get home and decompress, but I haven't gotten sick this time, which is sick. So also didn't lose my voice on the tour. Everything went phenomenal. So
Well,
I'm pretty
knock on
happy
wood,
with
that's
that.
good to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Why do you think that is? That when you come off tour, you usually have to have kind of that. I don't know if it's physically ill or whether it's kind of mentally you don't really know what to do with yourself until the next tour. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
No, it's definitely both. Definitely mentally and physically. For some people, obviously, it's more physical. Some people, it's more mentally. I think it's, for me and for the boys, it's like 50-50 maybe. I mean, when you go on tour, you dive into this kind of schedule that you haven't done for a while. And you constantly, you don't work 100% for like 8 hours. You work probably like 70, 75, 80% all the waking hours, because you always have to be at some place, even though it's, oh, you have to shower now so you can do that later. You have to go eat now because there won't be another time during the whole fucking day to do that. And like, even though we only played 30 minutes set for this tour as a support band, we work for like 3 hours. So basically I warm up an hour before the show, and like warm up voice, body, even the mind some. And then you have to cool down, pack everything down, make sure everything is good, shower, pack your shit, and just run off to eat as fast as you can to get back to when the headliner ends their set, to be able to pack everything down and roll it out. So it's just fucking always in motion. And whenever you have a day off, you feel like, oh, we're going to do this on a day off. Maybe we should work, write a song, explore shit. But it always ends up being something like, yeah, you either explore, but even exploring feels like stressed a little bit. You never get time to like actually relax. The only time you relax is like the hour before you go to bed, when you just lay in your bunk and just do whatever the fuck, like watch a show or just breathe for a moment. But like waking up on tour is always like, hey, wake up, take supplements to make sure you don't get sick that day. And like fucking some people work out and just brush your teeth, go in and work, and like constantly bam, bam, bam all the time. So I guess it's natural when you get home from a tour to get sick and to like needing some decompression, both for body and soul. So it's a hectic thing that you don't do in your normal life when you're home. If you're a full-blown musician, like, I mean, obviously you write songs, produce shit, do whatever when you're home. Or if you make enough money on tour that you can actually like relax between tours. and shit. So it's different for each people. We're still like, I still consider us as like a small band. Obviously, we're like a mid-size. I think it's
Sure.
like the conclusion of that, but still, it's just a lot of fucking work.
But
And
you
also,
you
we just released an album as well, so it's been insane that way.
no, but you raise an interesting point, and this is something I hear from other musicians as well, where, and even I think in the history of your own band, if I'm not mistaken, one of the reasons why the previous singer Ben left was because he wasn't sure that touring all the time was the kind of the life for him. And I hear that from musicians every once in a while. Well, you really have to be passionate about it to go into that touring lifestyle, because it, as
Yeah.
you mentioned, it is quite hectic. So where did that love or come from for you, and where does that still come from for you? What keeps you going in a way?
I think being in the position I am now and the boys are now is that we're growing. We're still
Mm,
growing. And we, especially with this album, we can see growth happen. It's not only work, it's actually a little bit a reward by releasing
sure.
music that people actually like, and doing shows that people enjoy, and a constant like feedback, positive feedback just going in. So I think that is like payment a little bit. That's your salary. You do get money, obviously, so you don't die, but it's still like, I think the reason we keep going, especially for our band, is that uh, we're so dialed in with the way we grow as a band.
Mm,
Like we've been growing for so long. And after I joined the band, I feel like the band, I don't know about what happened before, but I
sure.
feel like the band didn't have that gear that's put in now. And it's just like, you can, I don't know. Now, when this album is out, we just did this tour. We're about to go on cool tours this year.
Hmm.
You just like start to feel the reward a little bit, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is sick. Let's keep going. Let's keep fighting. Let's work as hard as we can.
That is very good to hear. And obviously, new music helps with that, as you mentioned. So,
Yeah.
for you personally, then, Heavener is the second album that you are involved in. Was anything different because it's the second run now? You're more used to it. You're more used to the guys.
It's day and night. Like
Okay.
it's Gravy was. I just jumped in to a band that had like half a record written, and they had an idea of what they wanted, and I wasn't that. Like I jumped into a band by like, okay, I can become this, but I
Hmm.
wasn't that quite. So the whole journey, like first time I was in America, was in the studio for recording Graveview, and like it was very like it was an insane experience. I loved it.
Sure.
We had fun. We went creative. I learned so much. But it's still like that whole album was some kind of learning curve
Mm.
for who I am in the band, and like still that whole release, like the first tour within like, and then COVID hit. So it's just like it wasn't until we wrote and recorded the EP, The Sun Sleeps As If It Never Was, that I really found myself as a piece of the band, if
Okay.
that's the correct way to say it. But it's definitely like, I don't know. It's Heavener is definitely a collective of everyone's mind and hard work into this piece. And I really feel like I finally have a foot in as much as
Mm.
the other boys when it comes to that, which is sick. Like I wrote a lot of the songs lyrically on that album. I wrote a lot of the screaming. I recorded all the screaming myself, and the singing I did like 30% of the singing, 20% of the singing or something by myself as well. With
Okay.
the boys obviously dialing, like coming with feedback and like coming up with
Sure.
melodies and hooks and whatever. But it's, I don't know. It's definitely like, if I if we were to record an album again today, like right now, I would be like, okay, let's do it exactly as we did it. Like do it exactly. I want the same experience. I want the same minds put into it. And like, obviously it's gonna sound different, but because it's like fucking year ago we wrote that.
Sure.
But um, but still, it wasn't comfortable at all. Like, it was still hard work. It was still sweat. It was still fucking annoying, as it always is. But it was just way more, I wouldn't say relaxed, but it wasn't as much of a hassle, like,
Right.
mentally.
Well, I find it interesting what you mentioned that you weren't where you needed to be yet on Graveyard. Now, what maybe it's multiple things. Maybe it's just experience with the guys in the band. But obviously, you've played music before that. So what were you in your own mind still lacking in a way that you could to phrase it a little bit more succinctly? What were you as an artist, as a musician, lacking for Graveyard that you now in Heavener kind of had attained and could share with the band?
I feel like before Invent Animate, I did some singing like early on, but right before Invent Animate, I only did screaming. I still sung
Right.
on my free time, like recorded my own shit, but I never used my singing voice on a professional product. Like Aviana, my old band, I did like slight singing on that record we did. But I definitely jumped in with like, okay, I'm gonna become a singer now. Like, I'm officially gonna become a singer, and it was, I didn't have it yet. So like during the recording process, we explored shit, and like, even though we did that with this album as well, like we explored a lot of stuff. I feel like during Graveview, we had to create something while we recorded it. While in Heavener, we didn't have to create anything. We just needed to find what I already had and emphasize that on the album. Because I still like, I like when we jumped in the studio with the Landon, the guy we recorded vocals with, I knew how to do all this shit. I just never took it and put it into a professional setting and actually like refine these pieces, like how to sing falsetto and like how to add distortion to singing in that certain way. I just had to like try everything out, find what we thought was cool, and just try to do that as good as we fucking could.
Right.
So that was definitely a different thing from Graveview.
And you mentioned your contributions this time around. Is there one song in terms of perhaps lyrics, but it can be anything, that is a little bit closer to your heart, perhaps something that you kind of wanted to say on this album, or a song that needed to come out?
I've talked a lot about the song Elysium on this record. It was basically about my granddad passing when I was 15. I just didn't acknowledge it at the time. I acknowledged it, but it just didn't hit me in a negative way at all. Like it was sad that he's gone, but it was like he was sick, and like I feel like it was just good for him, kind of thing.
Sure.
But and like on the funeral, like nobody was crying, and I was just sitting there like, okay, like yeah, this is so sad, but I just can't cry, and I don't know why. And then just like I turned, like I can't remember when it was 26 or 27. It was a couple of years ago. It just hit me, and I'm like, I started remembering shit. Like I didn't cry, but I started remembering shit from that time that I completely forgotten, and I had no idea why that came to me. So I'll definitely write a song about like personal revelation in the future in that sense. But it was basically just like, I think I just emotionally matured, not overnight, obviously, but it came to a point where like it allowed stuff like that to come back and like hit me a little bit. So I wrote a song about it, and it was cool. And I wrote the lyrics a little bit before we wrote the album, and the guys spat out an emotional song. They called it, I can't remember what it was called, Bud, as a project name. But I was like, hey, let's put these lyrics in. And they were like, yeah, let's go. And just put it in there, and it sounded fucking sick. So it made so much sense with the mood of the track. The boys are very good with writing instrumentals that are like very ambient, atmospheric, emotional. So it was an easy pick for me. But also this song False Meridian on the album, I'm very surprised about people actually fucking liking that song, because it's just stupid funny. It ends cool and emotional, but it's still just a funny ass song. And It's about identity crisis, and it's something that I've been like not struggling with, but I'm like, it's been annoying for a lot of years for me. Like I just don't know. I know who I am, obviously. I just don't know who I want to be and how to get there. You know what I mean? It's
I
always
have
it's always been that way, and obviously everyone thinks about this in a sense from time to time, but for me, it's just been fucking annoying from the
that
start.
I completely get what you're saying. I'm 36 now, and I have no clue what I want to do with my life. I still don't. I mean, I do this job which I found really interesting, obviously, and I get to
Yeah,
talk to very interesting musicians.
that's
But I
cool.
have no conception of myself in the future in a way. So it's really interesting.
I mean, something that I think about a lot is that it's fine where I am because I'm obviously
Yeah.
going somewhere. Uh, and I've always lived by the thing like, just never go back. You know what I mean? Never go back. There's nothing to gain from a place you've already been.
Mm.
So it's just like, and also staying still is fine, even if it's like 5 to 10 years. You can stand still. If that keeps you alive, that's fine. But I always try to like move forward in a sense.
But then I feel I find it very a very healthy attitude. But also with what kind of the overarching themes are on the album, you mentioned already lost things like anxiety and doubt. And then I think that's kind of the age that you are in as well, where you start thinking about those things and kind of looking towards the future more. And everybody in the band, I suppose, is going through similar things. So what was it like having these discussions with everybody and kind of figuring out, uh, yeah, what the album should be?
I think the album grew as a flower or whatever I'm supposed to say. It's just, I think once we wrote the first, once we committed the first lyrics to the first song, and then we're like, okay, I think because we were in a cabin, we actually stole Landon Tours from the Plot and You and locked him in a cabin and said, hey, let's write some cool vocal hooks. We got a couple of songs. And basically what we had was, we had like uh, four riding stations, like basement of that cabin. Not basement, it was just sick cabin, but it was lower level of the cabin was a vocal station with me and Landon, where we came up with like melody ideas and tracked them on spot and shit. Then we had like up was like main writing session with like Trey and Keaton, wrote songs, riffs, started to piece things together, change things. If me and Landon said, okay, let's see if we can scramble this and maybe we can do this with vocals. And we just send it off to them upstairs and they can do that on the spot. Then we had Caleb, who was just basically in a corner with his station, just creating atmosphere. Like he's so good with synths and shit. So that really helped us a lot because that took the weight off that sense from the boys who wanted to write cool shit and like good shit and just trying to come up with the song structure. So that was sick. But what happened was that I feel like, I don't know if I remember this incorrectly, but it feels like we wrote a song and then it just, okay, he wrote a song about this. And then that sparked an idea. And everyone just always try to write lyrics. Um, and apparently we kind of felt the same way because like me and Keaton, for example, wrote, I wrote Elysium, he wrote Without a Whisper. They're not about the same thing, but it's very related. Uh, and it's just, and they turn out to be about loss, both. And that kind of, I feel like that sparked the mood for the album. Even though like they're the only two songs about loss, I think there might be one more, but uh, it still set the mood throughout the album and the way we wrote everything because everyone was involved with the lyrics, even though someone wrote the general like idea of the song. Like me, for example, writing Elysium, I never finished Elysium on my own. Like we all came together, and because sometimes you have to choose words if it sounds cool or not in a chorus. You have to do shit like that, but it still have to make sense, obviously.
Yeah,
But
just
we,
phonetically, it needs to fit within the
yeah,
melody
yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
yeah, rhymes and such, you know. Yeah, no.
But
So
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, like, I feel like it kind of grew on top of itself when it comes to lyrics, and it just became heavener in a way.
what I find funny is because you had I believe well over 40 song ideas, and we kind of talked about some of the songs already. But what was the process like whittling it down to those? I can't believe it's. Let me count. 3, 9. I think 12. If I'm not
No,
mistaken, 12,
I think it's 11. Yeah.
11. Sorry, I can't count apparently.
No, it's fine.
So what was it going from Fate of 40 to 11? What was the process like whittling it down and seeing what worked and uh yeah, just figuring out which songs made the album.
So what I've learned is that when a band says like, "Oh, we had 120,000 songs and narrowed down to 10 or whatever," it's never 100 and whatever songs that's finished. It usually never is. Uh, but it could be bits and pieces. It could be a full long song that just never was completed. But it could also be a couple of songs that were really good, but it just didn't fit the bar compared to the other songs. And I think if I think really hard, I think we had probably 8 or 9 songs that were like instrumentally finished, kind of. And then we had so many fucking ideas, like some songs that was just pretty much put together pretty quickly as ideas. But I feel like once we had an idea that we really liked, we put so much energy into it that it became what we wanted to be, and it was an obvious pick. Like, so that was the case for a lot of songs. But we also had a couple of songs that we had this one song that we worked on for fucking months. It existed for so long. We just never created a version of that song that everyone was happy with. So it took more toll on us, and we started to dislike the song. Not only because of that, but because it took so long that our taste grew throughout that process, and we just didn't like that song anymore. We had like a cool thing. I remember the song briefly. I think I listened to it a couple of months ago, and it's just phenomenal shit going on. So we might use it
Yeah,
in a
perhaps next
different.
album.
I don't know. I don't know, but it's still like it's just an annoying song that I never want to listen to because of what happened. Like it was just so much work into nothing, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that's always interesting because that's your memory. For the people that listen, we only hear the song and attach our own memories to it. But for you who made the song, you remember the time in the studio and how difficult it may have been to
Yeah.
create it. So because you mentioned kind of these choices that you make, and a song like Reverie, which is kind of almost that calm moment in the middle of the album, was that by design then that you thought, okay, let's because that's a song that's a little bit different from the rest, I would say.
I think Reverie. So Reverie is basically Caleb, our bassist, sat in his corner in the cabin and created this piece. And after a while, he just created something cool and he just showed everyone, and everyone was like, "Okay, we're gonna use that because we want to have something on the album that is so different from everything else in that like calm, spacey sense." So we were like, "Yeah, keep going," and he just pretty much like made it so sick. And Boys added a big section that's not in the song. It's like a big guitar piece, like a heavy ass fucking thing going on, and then there's an outro. Uh, and we put that together, we recorded a song, everything is on it. After a while, because Landon did a cool melody throughout the whole song, and we just agreed on everything instantly, recorded it, it sounded phenomenal. I think some of the takes in that song, I might be lying. I feel like some of the takes actually from that writing session did come into the actual song, the actual release. But we ended up scrapping the big guitar section because we wanted this song to be not just another song on the album. We wanted to be a mid album art piece, maybe almost like an interlude with vocals on it, pretty much. So it ended up being that, and we ended up liking the song way more when we took away the one thing that made it into a real song. So
Right.
it's just because like being all because we got a lot of like songs on most songs on the album have like structure, like real like pop structure in the songs, and we just haven't done that before. And I feel like, yeah, we need something that's a little bit different. So we had that, and we had Immolation of Night, both two black and white pieces that just stick out, and they're after each other on the album, which is cool.
But I also find it very cool to hear that you guys seem, obviously this from an outside perspective, but seem to be bursting with all kinds of ideas. Oh, let's put a guitar solo in here. Let's do this. Let's do this. So I think that's it's better than having no ideas and having to figure out what to put in. It's better to think, okay, we might need to take some stuff out. But getting back to Reverie, it's also one way you use your voice, as we mentioned, a little bit differently. It's less screaming, obviously. And so,
Yeah.
so what was it like for you vocally to record that song or to sing that song?
So comfortable. It felt great. It felt great to not be like having to push so fucking hard all the time, and like instead of trying to sound as panicky as possible, which I do on the rest of the album, I try to sound, I don't know, I try to put in as much vocal technique into my like mixed voice soft singing. And there's a lot of falsetto on that thing as well. Also go very low, like oh, on like the end section, which was cool because I've never used that ever in music in my life. So it was cool to do that. I listened a lot to Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother, and I just love the way he sings. And like every time I sing his songs, I feel like my real voice comes out. So I wanted to use that. And I'm definitely gonna use that on more shit in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe in the future some songs you can save yourself a little bit and
Yeah,
try
yeah,
to.
definitely.
But for this album, it works kind of that as you mentioned, kind of that you need that kind of angst in your voice, I suppose, for the type of songs that they are. Final question then, because you mentioned one of the things that keeps the band going is kind of this idea, okay, we're moving forward, we're progressing, we're going somewhere. So for you personally, and maybe this is different for everybody in the band, I don't know, but what is your sense of where you want to go as a musician? Do you have any idea of what you still want to accomplish in a way?
Uh, I feel like the journey for me in Invent Anime has just begun. So I'm very excited for the future
Mm.
with our band. And I feel like what I want to do in the future and what I'm actually like having hard plans on and actually like lined up projects for is like I want to do more vocal production.
Okay.
I want to write songs with other artists, help out other artists, maybe put my head together with another equal like artist in some, but in a different genre and try to do like just experiment. The future is bright right now for Invent Animate, so there's gonna be a lot of fucking work into Invent Animate. But as soon as I feel like I got energy and time over, I want to do something outside of that scope as well. But I feel like right now, just fucking hit the gas pedal with Invent Animate and just trying to tour this album as good as we fucking can. Just trying to use this album for as good as we fucking can. Because there's 3 years between albums. It's the golden rule. Most people want to do 2 years, but it takes like 1 year to write it, 1 year to record, and 1 year to release it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, one last question then, because I find it interesting. What makes Invent Animate ever since you joined the band, and obviously they were doing their thing and they were doing well before, but it seems that since Graveview and now Heavener, both are received really well from what I can tell so far. And what do you think this why the band is so prolific at the moment? Why is everything going so well in a sense?
I feel like right now, a big reason why Heavener is doing great is because I don't know, we have a good team backing us, obviously, but the actual attraction for the music itself from people, I feel like it's just our music can be comforting, it can be playful, it can sound very anxious, which is something I'm proud of because it's been my goal from the start in music to write something that's just insane. I love the band Old Sleeper, and his voice is just pure blood in your ears, which is cool. And I just want to, I don't know. I think people like Heavener because, and Gravy because it's every song spikes emotion in a way, almost every song. And I feel like I've got it explained to me by fans before that the way everything is put together just makes sense. even though we work a lot with shocking moments on this album, like we're trying to shock the listeners a little bit, like surprise them with
Mm.
sections. It's still very, they say it's because everything just makes sense and it's comforting in a way. So I don't know. Like I don't want to. I don't know how to speak from outside the box on our music, to be honest. But
Yeah, it's a little bit unfair to ask you the question because it's very
it's
difficult
fine.
But anyway, Marcus, thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank you.
talk with me. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.